John Carpenter. What are you, a carpenter or something?
All right.
That's all
Nice. I was just telling David that I have been completely out of it for coming up with openers these past few weeks because nothing is jumping out of the screen and being like, this is what I need to say about this, or necessarily also the music. I mean, I guess I could have. I'm thinking of some lyrics now that I could have started with, but I don't know. I feel like
Throw it out.
Now I can't think of any.
That's how it always goes.
I was just going to say that, John Carpenter, Jesus was a carpenter.
Yeah.
Any correlation there? I don't know.
They say that
was my thought.
They say that John is the English name, version of the name Jesus. So
that is true. Yeah. So maybe he himself is Jesus reincarnated, and that's why he makes movies, and that's why he inspired the genre synthwave, which we learned about last week.
And horror, just the way that Christianity put a lot of horrors on people too.
Very true. Wow, I think we solved it, guys.
I think we did. That's it. We can pack it up and go home. This is the Uncultured Pop Culture Podcast, and this is David, as usual, joined by Brandon.
Brandon, as usual.
Yes. We're always as usual.
The co-pilot.
Co-pilot, yes. Oh, that's come back after forever.
I had to bring it back, It's a very special episode. It's Halloween today. Not today when we're recording this, and also not today when this is coming out, but in our minds, this is the week of Halloween, so this is the Halloween episode.
Because we are very scared right now.
Extremely scared. I'm scared of everything that's going on right now in the world and society.
Yeah.
It's a spooky time to be alive, and it's a spooky time to be in your 20s. We've got a great episode for you. I mean, what better Halloween movie to do than the movie called Halloween? I mean, we didn't even put any thought into that at all.
It kind of writes itself, to be honest. And I think that's the perfect Halloween episode to start our podcast with when it comes to Halloween episodes.
And we also have an album that I'm sure no one has heard of by a band that I'm sure no one has heard of. And that's how I like it. I wanted to choose something spooky, something a little haunted to pair with our movie. And I mean, let's get this out of the way right now. Do you think that these two work together?
I think they do. I think that, the music is creepy in a way that fits the movie, but it's also not like, oh my God, I'm so scared, which is also fitting because the movie isn't like, oh my God, I can't sleep every night. It's a different type of horror movie.
It's not slasher music, but it's more spooky Halloween music.
And that works.
I think it works.
The movie literally opens with a pumpkin, so what can you say?
Very true.
That being said, what have you been listening to?
We listened to The Midnight last week. And as promised, their album came out in the time since we recorded, and now I'm going to talk about it.
Completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it's a very good album. I don't know what else to say. It's 17 tracks. It is 1 hour and 25 minutes. I listened to the majority of the songs, and then I was like, there's got to only be 4 left. And I looked, and there were only 4 left, and I still had 30 minutes to go. And I was like, oh my God. So anyway,
that's not a good sign.
The album ended up being very good.
Well, that's good, I guess.
It will make it onto my year-end chart, I believe, but it is very long, which is, I think, the biggest drawback of it, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's too long. There's every song's very different, and there's a lot of different ideas explored on it. There's just a few songs that feel like, okay, this is really long, but I will say that I enjoyed it. So that was that one. And I got to throw in another album for you. And that album is Strung Out Symphony by Alden. I've been waiting for this moment for years. Alden is one of probably my favorite artists to come out of the hyperpop scene. Everyone had split apart and no longer makes that kind of music anymore. And he is no exception. This is an album that is kind of indie rock. It's very weird. I mean, it's not weird, it's normal, and that's the weird part, because his old music used to be kind of weirder. But I will say, this album, I was very excited for it. I was hoping it'd make it into my year-end list. It's just good. I think it's solid, but it's nothing like revolutionary. And sadly, it is, I think, 15 tracks, but it's only 30 minutes. A lot of the songs feel too short, which is a weird thing that I don't usually say. I feel like I wanted more in a lot of these songs.
Yeah,
But
that's a bummer.
I will say, there's some good ones on here. I will definitely be coming back to it. So shout out to Alden, and I hope that we do one of his hyperpop EPs at some point on the podcast, because I think there's a lot of very interesting sounds on there, most of which you probably won't like, but I would be curious anyway.
I was also going to say, when you first mentioned the artist name, I was like, oh, I've never heard of that artist. And then you said hyperpop, and I was like, oh, okay. Makes sense.
That would be why.
Yeah. But I'm very intrigued.
Before I ask you what you watched, I'm just going to get my new Music Friday song out of the way. This week's song is Bite by Minna. I don't know if that's how you say it. It's MIN.A. I have never heard of this artist before. I don't think she's a very big artist.
Right.
But I didn't have any songs this week that immediately grabbed me that I was like, this is the song I'm talking about this week. And this was one that I just kept coming back to. And I think it's very nice. I don't really know how to describe it other than it's kind of like a slower indie rock, kind of almost dream poppy song. But if you like that, and if you like supporting smaller artists, which is my whole thing, stream it. And also probably like that's really not going to do anything. So like buy merch or something if you enjoy it that much.
Right.
But I'm doing the best I can do, unfortunately, because this economy,
Life.
we just don't have money.
Yeah.
But on that note, did you spend any money at the theater this week?
So I actually did. And I literally spent money at the theater because instead of going to Regal, which is the pass that I have, I went to AMC.
Oh.
That's right. I was forced to. And it ended up being okay because it was worth it. I went to see Perfect Blue, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that movie.
Not at all.
It's an anime movie, and it's held in very high regard. And I can see why, because it's very good. It got 5 out of 5. It is very disturbing, which a lot of anime is, but it's also like not gratuitous, which I feel like that's kind of something you do find in anime. At least it's not too gratuitous, and it's done really beautifully, and it's like sucks you in, and it's just a really amazing film. And I think everyone that's at least interested should watch it. I know that anime is not for everyone, but I think that this is the type of film that might speak to you even if you don't really like the art style. And I say that as someone that enjoys anime, even if I've never really gotten into it. And now I want to check more movies out and more shows. So I think we should watch it soon.
Is it new? Like, did it come out this year?
No, this is a 90s film.
Oh, why was it in AMC? Was it an anniversary?
I think so. I think it was like the 30th or something. So I went with Jennifer and a friend of the pod, Danny, who we will probably have to have on as a guest for that episode if we ever do cover this film. And yeah, they had just done a 4K like re-release of the film. And that's why it was in theaters. Sadly, it wasn't at a Regal, or else I would have gone to Regal. But it was money well spent, to be honest, because we went to the City Walk AMC, which is the bougie AMC for anyone that doesn't know Los Angeles. Except for the parking, obviously. that was terrible.
Yeah. Well, the parking is bougie as well because you're paying like $50 for it.
Exactly. Yeah. We ended up going to a parking meter and paying like $3 for like 3 hours. And that's the way to go.
Much better.
Yeah. That being said, should we get into it?
I think it's time to get into it. This very special Halloween episode for everyone.
Ooh.
It's time to get spooky. And I'm going to start off a little differently this week. And I'm going to tell you how I found these guys, because I have some very specific things I want to talk about.
Oh, that's exciting.
And one of them is going to be a conversation between us, and look forward to it. That's all I have to say. David has no idea what this is going to be about.
I generally don't, yeah.
So I found these guys through their song Kill Shot, which was released as a single before the mixtape. So this is not technically an album, it's a mixtape. It fills that weird space between an EP and an album, but it also generally means it's more of like a bootleg release where it's not like an official, like you didn't spend a ton of time on it. Now, what I will say is that these guys actually did, and there's visuals to go along with it, and there's music videos for most of the tracks. So, mixtape, whatever. As I said last week, do words mean anything? Not particularly.
At this point, no.
But anyway.
Not anymore.
I listened to the mixtape the week it came out, and I was like, it's kind of whatever. A few months later, I saw an ad for it on TikTok with the song Crunk, and it had visuals. And I was like, wait, I think I might have misjudged this. And also during this time, there was an edit of Smoke Hole, which I will talk about later. And that came out, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I should probably give this a second chance. And I listened to it a second time, and I got it. Also, I saw a few comments on YouTube of people who said they had a similar experience to me. Not necessarily the part of discovering them and then being like, I don't get it, but the act of discovering them through TikTok or Instagram ads, which is insane because I don't click on ads. I don't listen to ads. I hate them so much. There was something about this band that was like, whoa, I feel like they're doing something different here.
It was just so captivating. It just gets you.
It really was. It was very interesting. It was back in the days where when you'd open up TikTok, it would show you an ad like as it's loading. So you couldn't like scroll or anything, and you'd just be like forced to watch this ad. And that was the first ad I got. And I was like, wait, this is actually really good. I don't know why I didn't like it at first. So now getting into the actual mixtape. There were 4 singles before the mixtape's release, and that release was February 26th, 2021 by Parlophone Records, Elektra Records, and the band's own label, Irish Wristwatch Limited, which is incredibly hard to say, and I wanted to see if I could do it, and I did. Thank God.
Congratulations.
This is their first mixtape, and it is their second release as a band after their 2020 EP, SND001. And Sad Night Dynamite is a band of 2 people, much like last week.
Oh, so I guess a duo?
Archie Blagden and Josh Grayson. I do not know if that's how you say either of their names. I know they're Archie and Josh, but they never say their last names anywhere. And my apologies because I don't know. And they're from Somerset, England.
Ah, the English.
Yes, which is Western England. And they, in one of their interviews, mentioned that one of them grew up right next to Glastonbury. So if that helps anyone pinpoint where they are, I don't know if that's actually like what they claim is where they're from. But
and all you Americans just used Google Maps to find out where they're from.
Exactly. Type in Somerset. It's a county, I believe, but it's like Somersetshire or something. I don't know how the English do counties. I literally do not understand it. People like complain about American like towns and townships being confusing. I don't understand like English geography and like places at all. And I'm like a geography nerd, so who knows?
I mean, they don't make sense at all over there. But anyways.
So these guys formed in 2020 officially. I believe they were like formed as a band in 2019 and were making music before then. But their first release was in spring of 2020. And then they disbanded in 2024, shortly after the release of their debut album.
Oh.
And now, this is what I wanted to talk about. That debut album, called Welcome the Night, came out in September of 2024, I believe. And the album's art was created with an AI artist who is a real person that used to be, for lack of a better term, a real artist that then pivoted to making AI art.
Why would they do that?
I'm going to tell you what the band says. They said that they wanted to make people angry and upset to get a big reaction on social media, but that it may have backfired.
Sounds like it.
And for me personally, I have not listened to the album because I've always had other things that I've been like, I want to listen to this, and I go back to that album, and then I think about the AI artwork, and I'm like, ethically, I don't know. And they said that that's kind of what they wanted. They wanted to push boundaries and make themselves into like the villain. And they did that throughout the campaign of the album because they also had this very public fake feud with one of the band members' supposed girlfriends who was like 20 years older. And it was to promote their song Sugar Baby. it was very interesting. And I kind of liked it, but they also got a really negative reaction from that because people thought it was real. And they were like, no, we're promoting music. But at the same time, they wanted people to think it was real. It's a very weird, they like to push boundaries.
This is a whole mess.
Yeah. What do you think about AI artists, all of that stuff? Because the music is all them. They're still making the music with real people.
Yeah. I mean,
and notably, the AI artist is a real person
right,
that's making this art. So,
and it's like they still got paid. That being said, this is such a can of worms with like so many gray areas. I mean, I don't like it. I don't think AI should be used for art in any capacity. This is kind of a difficult situation because you do have like an artist using AI to make their art. So it's not like the company that released the music just went and like plugged in like a prompt into AI to make the art. You know, there was an actual person. But it's still like, I guess for me, it's just like, why? I get like trying to elicit a strong reaction, but just why? Like, I don't think it added anything to it, you know?
yeah, I mean, there was a print interview. Well, I guess it was an online magazine interview with one of the band members and then with the AI artist. And the AI artist really pissed me off because he was like, you guys just don't understand what it's like to make AI art. You have to prompt it, and it's like talking to a baby that doesn't understand anything.
That's
it's
idiotic.
like maybe you can just like draw something. And the crazy thing is this guy knows how to do things. He used to be a 3D artist.
Right. It's like you took the art out of it.
The whole point of AI currently is to get rid of artists, which like as an artist feels weird that you're using it. And I wonder if that's kind of what inspired them breaking up.
Yeah. I think ultimately for me, AI artist doesn't work as a title.
Correct.
Because AI can't make art. I don't consider like the regurgitations that like AI does to be art because it's not creativity. That's just, like AI calculating and putting stuff together based off of like an equation. That's not art. I think that's ultimately my take on it. And I think that's why even though like, yeah, there was a person behind it, that's why I'm just like, why would you even do that? Because that's just, it's not art. And like the moment that he said that they broke up right after, I was kind of like, oh, it probably was something related to the art, wasn't it? Obviously, I know that's kind of like speculation, but I could totally see that being it.
Right. It's all speculation. And I don't know if it's because of the art or because of the like negative backlash that they got. Because like, I mean, as an artist, if something I put out got that much of a negative reaction to the like past the point of where I wanted it to be, it would be like, okay, yeah, maybe I need some time away. And they've both said that that they're going to continue making music. They're still friends. They've been best friends for like 10 years and they're going to continue to be friends. They're just not working on the Sad Night Dynamite project right now, maybe ever again. So, which sucks because I think that it's a really cool idea. And from the start, they had a vision that they were carrying out with this limousine that you can see drowning on the cover. That's always been their thing. And that's also the subject of the album's art. It's a limousine in a crowd, which I get would be hard to shoot if you're a photographer, but you could also have somebody paint it or like illustrate it in another way. So, I have my problems with it. And there's a reason I haven't listened to it.
And just to clarify, that art is the AI one, the limousine in the crowd?
The Welcome the Night album art. And then the singles, I believe most of them were, for that album, were created using this AI artist as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of unfortunate. But this art for this mixtape is real.
Thank God.
Correct. I also want to say that at this time they were signed to a label. When they released Welcome the Night, they were independent and they were licensing their music to AWOL, which is you generally don't get money from AWOL to work on your music or anything else. So that also could be a factor. I'm not making an excuse because I think that's a pretty lame excuse, but I will say that maybe that was something that they thought about. But alas, I have another question for you that's going to be a discussion. What is the genre of this?
Creep pop? I don't know. I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, no one does, including myself.
Do they even know?
I don't think they do, and they have never really been able to describe it. They're just kind of like, we do whatever we want, which I like.
Yeah.
Because
That's nice, yeah.
it falls somewhere in the realm of hip hop, I believe. It's tagged as hip hop and neo psychedelia, and then also the smaller like genres underneath it are alternative R&B, trip hop, alt pop, and experimental hip hop. And then it also has the scene of UK hip hop because they're from the UK. So kind of all over the place. I do think there's hip hop elements, but there's definitely this psychedelic kind of like creepy vibe to it, which I find to be very interesting and kind of the reason that I am drawn to this and was drawn to it for the Halloween episode, of course.
Right. It is very, very out there. It's like impossible to describe.
Exactly. And for the purposes of us categorizing what we've listened to, I'm counting this as hip hop, even if it doesn't really fit entirely. On this mixtape, all songs were written and produced by Sad Night Dynamite. The mixtape as a whole was executive produced by 2 Inch Punch. It was mixed by Steve Sedgwick and mastered by Stuart Hawkes. And I think your favorite song will be Scully.
Ooh, well, I'm excited to find out. Well, I mean, I know, but I'm excited for you to find out.
I'm also excited to find out. And I'm excited for you to find out that your favorite will be Scully.
Exactly. I'm not even going to name what your favorite is going to be because I give up. I will say, what I really should be doing is guessing what your score for the movie is going to be anyways.
You should. And you know what? We should do that. If I remember, we'll do that once we start the movie section. Unless you want to say it right now.
I'll throw it out right now. I think for you, it's going to be a 3.
Okay. Very good.
2.5, 3. I'll keep it at 3.
Maybe I should guess what your score for this mixtape is going to be. I'm going 2.5, but I could see it being a 2 maybe. But I think overall it'll be a 2.5.
Well, I'm excited.
But we have to start it off with the introduction to the mixtape intro. Perfectly titled, in my opinion. I think that this sets up the vibe perfectly. And it's a great spooky album / mixtape. This song has references to Crying Over Nothing Part 2, which appears later as the other interlude in the lyrics. And then it melodically samples Smoke Hole. And I like it. It's very short, so I can't really give it a huge score. So this is a 3. What did you think about this one? And do you think that from this song, did you think I'm going to like this album or this is going to be hard?
Well, I thought... I was thinking to myself when I was listening to this song that I would probably not really like the album, but also not really hate it.
2.5 sounds pretty good right now.
That's exactly what I gave it. I give it a 2.5 to the song. I'm not going to say what I gave to the album, but that is exactly what I did give to the song. First of all, there are elements that definitely didn't work for me, such as like the vocal distortion, stuff like that. That being said, I think just the interesting vibes of the music, like, kind of made it work in the sense that it just made me very interested in it. You know, I was interested in what they would do next, and I did find like the creepy atmosphere to be very engaging, even if it's not something that I like want to listen to a lot or something that I would come back to. And that's really why this is a 2.5, because even if like I didn't really particularly like it, it was very interesting and I enjoyed the experimentation pretty much. And that's kind of something that continued on through the album. But yeah, there are certainly elements that I didn't like, but I think that fact kind of made me think, oh, I think I'm going to just continue to be interested in the album as a whole because of the experimentation.
Do you think this is a good Halloween song?
I mean, I don't think this is a great song per se, but I think the tone fits Halloween very well. I'll say that. And that's definitely my favorite part of the song, which is the tone.
We are off to the start that I assumed this would be, because I expected you to not really enjoy this album much because you don't really have a history of liking this kind of music. Also, this is a note to myself as I'm editing and maybe just to you in general. We need to do an album like where a lot of emphasis is placed on auto-tuned, distorted, manipulated vocals. And because I want to see what happens. Because we did this kind of with 100 gecs, but it's very abrasive. We got to do something a little bit more normal, I think.
And we could always go back and do Cher's, I don't remember the name, but her 90s album that had a lot of it. Kind of like the first use of it.
Yeah, the first like commercially successful auto-tune song.
Could do that.
I don't know that that's good though.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Yeah, I don't think it was received well.
Hey, it's at least partially good because she's Armenian.
I was gonna say I was hoping that I would bring it up
yeah.
first, but never mind.
Too late.
Track number 2 is Icy Violence. Icy Violence or I See Violence. Ooh. This will be a theme throughout the album, but I think the production is so great. And they're one of the best bands at creating a haunted atmosphere, in my opinion, at least from what I've heard. And I'm sure there's other like occult black death metal or whatever the fuck it's called that is better than this. But, you know, I don't know that. And I'm not big into metal currently. I'll get there someday. We'll do some metal, like modern heavy metal on here, like death metal.
You mean you're not into a bunch of people screaming into a microphone for 10 hours?
Not all the time. Although some of the music I listen to does sound like that.
Yeah,
so,
just sometimes.
I don't know. I just haven't been able to get into metal. I don't have that kind of autism. Like some people, some autistic people like can only listen to metal and nothing else. And that's like scary to me.
That is very frightening to me too. I agree with that. Yeah.
Anyway, I love the use of the guitar-like instruments in this song and kind of throughout their music as a whole. I believe it's a mandolin, potentially, or it's a banjo. It's definitely not a guitar, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's very twangy.
Maybe it's I don't know how to say it, oud, O-U-D. That thing like makes weird sounds similar to that. I think that's how you say it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's also European.
I have no idea.
That might be like Celtic. I don't know.
I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, to be honest.
It's only 3 letters. What's the worst you can do?
Ood. I don't know.
That was too many syllables. Anyway, we're getting off track.
That was like 10. Anyways.
I also have to shout out the outro of this song because you know I love a good long outro. And this song has it.
We all know it.
This song to me feels like it evolves and it never stays in the same place for too long, despite it not like changing all that much throughout it. It just feels like it's constantly moving and progressing. This song is a 3.5, and this was the biggest surprise to me on this mixtape because I thought this song was fine when I first listened to it. And then the more I listened to the mixtape in this past like week, I was like, wait, this is actually really good. I like this a lot.
I was also very surprised because the production itself really worked for me in this song. And obviously, you know, like a lot of the other elements didn't work for me as much, but it was kind of like on the strength of the production, it bumped it up to a 3 because it really worked for me here in this song. I also wanted to say that this like fits a movie. Like this could be used in a movie. I could totally see that, especially a horror movie.
You are not going to believe what I have to say about the next song.
Oh, it's in a horror movie?
No, I was going to say that exact comment about the next song.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I say that about multiple songs, to be honest, on this album because it does just fit. But yeah, this is a 3.
Okay, let me ask you this: is this 3 the highest you go on the album?
No.
Okay, good.
I go a tiny bit higher. I think you can guess.
3.1.
3.0025. No, okay.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Track number 3, Kill Shot. And here it is, much like the Childish Gambino album, I feel that this is the perfect horror movie song.
Nice.
And I am a big fan of the singing and delivery on this song, especially in the chorus and the second verse. I assume you will not like it. And I think this is just a good, memorable song. And I mean, it is the first one I heard by them, so it's one of the ones I associate most with them. This one is also a 3.5.
I like how you said that you assumed I wouldn't like this because this is a step down from Icy Violence to me. And it's not like, oh, I think this just sounds horrible compared or anything like that. I just think that it, for lack of a better word, just doesn't sound as original to me as Icy Violence. I feel like it's a little more typical. It's ultimately just kind of a little bland to me, and yeah, it's a 2.5. I didn't particularly like this song.
In Killshot, they kind of lean more into the hip hop side of like whatever they're doing.
Right.
And I knew you wouldn't like that. But then also, I want to say, we need to listen to some like bad hip hop music.
That's also true.
Gunna released an album this year that is, God, 20, 25, 28 songs. I don't know. It is
Jesus
incredible.
Christ.
Every single song sounds exactly the same and talks about the same thing the entire time.
Yeah, that
Like
does not sound fun.
the amount of like bad hip hop that you can hear is kind of crazy. And the amount that I've heard also is equally as crazy.
And it's like that will change my opinion.
I think it will. I think you'll still dislike hip hop because I think that's just kind of like not a genre you enjoy. But I think you will have an appreciation for it. And I want to say something that I've noticed. It's changed now as Britain has kind of, I don't know, gotten more intertwined with American hip hop scenes. And that's thanks to drill, which is a whole other thing. But Britain used to be so much further ahead of the US in like creating songs and atmospheres in hip hop music. And this extends across like all facets, all like subgenres of hip hop. There was just something about British hip hop in the late 2010s and early 2020s that was just so much more interesting than anything going on in America. And I don't know that I want to lump these guys in with it because they don't really like their music is whatever. And they're also white. So it's kind of like, you know, but there is something to be said about producing a hip hop song because I feel like, I mean, I've talked about this before. I feel like we've kind of just lost the plot. And that's kind of why hip hop isn't like that big of a thing anymore. Like you look at the charts in the late 2010s, so much hip hop was super popular and it was creating these moments that just felt huge and inescapable. And now that's happening with country music. And it's like, what have we done? Look at what we've lost because everything got stale and stagnant and we weren't pushing the boundaries anymore. We were just making tight beats all the time.
Which, I mean, I feel like that's a cycle though, isn't it? Like that's what happened where it kind of shifted from like, you know, the pop of the early 2010s to like hip hop. And then before that, like from rock to pop, you know, so it's like, you know, it's all in the cycle.
We'll cycle back, but it is kind of disappointing when essentially hip hop music from 2020 and something that came out like 5 days ago is going to sound the same. It's so incredibly boring and like disheartening from a music lover standpoint. So when I hear something that is very different and interesting, like I think this is, it's more like, yay, you're doing something. And I have filtered out some like just god awful music that we haven't done yet, which we will have to do at some point.
Right.
Yeah, you'll hear some of it and you'll be like, okay, I get it now. Like that actually is way better than I thought it was. Not that that'll even change your score as well. I want to say that.
No, right. But I'm very intrigued now.
Anyway, after that long rant, we move on to track number 4, Mountain Jack. This song has the best production on the album. First 2 is my favorite part of the album. This is my favorite song on the album. I got a lyric for you. Dress like a punk they must be. Teenagers know they scare me.
Hell yeah.
So true.
Teenagers scare me so much.
Don't cry near me, as they like to say in the song. This is a 4.5. It would have been pushing into that 5 territory if it wasn't for the outro of the song, which has no point, and like I don't even understand why it's there. It doesn't fit the rest of the vibe of the song, but the production on this is great. The drums are amazing. And yeah, this is my favorite.
That's interesting because with this song, I actually don't hate it the most, as is typical when comparing X Chorus. I actually feel like this song kind of takes its parts and like blends them together a lot better than some of the previous songs. I think the biggest issue with me was when it came to this song was I felt like there was no melody to kind of carry the whole song all the way through. That being said, I still kind of preferred it over some of the recent songs. The part that was missing for me did bring it down to a 2.5, but I preferred this over all the previous 2.5s that I actually gave. So this was definitely kind of like a step up in some ways, I guess you could say. So finally, I'm not like totally hating the song that you love. Finally.
This is good because I do have another song that I rated quite high, and I think that might be your least favorite then,
Oh,
because it is definitely like I think it's the most hip hop of any song, but we'll talk about that later. Because first we have to talk about track number 5, Crunk, the song that was in the ad that made me say, maybe I should listen to this again. I have to start off by saying the famous titty. That's what they say throughout this entire song. I do not know what it means, but shout out, I guess. We're going to play a little game here. And this new game is called, Is This Song Misogynistic, British, Nonsense, or All of the Above? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's just British, you know? It might be misogynistic, but if it is misogynistic, I also honestly am kind of like, that's just because it's British. I don't know. I won't actually say that because sorry, Brits.
Well, you can say it.
Yeah, that's true. I'll say it because they do say, okay, the C word over there is literally not even swearing.
No, it's just like Australia. And you know what? I support that.
I mean, I support it too. And that's not just because of the TV show Deadwood, where they said all the time. But I support that 100% because it's a fun word to say.
It is.
We're going to get canceled right now.
They actually had a story about that. They called somebody, it was, I think, their first show in America, and they called somebody that word in the crowd, and everybody, like, it was silent. And they were like, oh my God, we didn't realize it was that bad to say in America because everybody says it.
Whoops.
They also seem like very nice people from the interviews I've seen. They seem just like two kind of average dudes who love music. So shout out. My thought on this is it's all of the above, but it's mostly nonsense.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I have something in my mind that I was like, I thought I saw something of them saying like, yeah, we just wanted to make a song that like sounded cool. That was just kind of like about nothing in particular. But I don't know if that's real or if I dreamt it because I was also pretty heavily medicated at the time.
Yeah. Hear that, kids? If you want to be cool, just be misogynistic.
I mean, that is kind of a failsafe, I will say. That, you know, I don't know what to say.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry, I guess.
Ironically, I also like pulled a quote from this, and my quote that I pulled was, I don't want to tell you, but I'm feeling your junk.
Okay, I was assuming it would be being that fat is a crime because I have that one written down.
Well, you could pull like every other lyric from the song, to be honest.
Absolutely insane bars in this. This is also a fan favorite because like what the hell is going on in it? It also sounds great. So
Jesus Christ.
This one is in between a 3 and a 3.5 for me. I'm going to put it at a 3 because I think I like the other 3.5s better. But there is something about this song that's just kind of like, why does it exist? But at the same time, it's a lot of fun. I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work for me. It is a lot of fun hearing like these lyrics and being like, wait, did they actually say that? So in that regard, I do agree. It doesn't work for me the same way that the other songs haven't worked for me. It's still a 2.5, which I will give it to them. They're very consistent in terms of like my feelings towards them, I guess. And I think that's a point in their honor. Yeah, that's a 2.5. Kudos to them for their consistency.
This is, first of all, a mixtape, but it's also not really like a concept album, but a lot of their music fits into this kind of like general vibe. At least around this time, a lot of their music did. So I wanted to ask you, Kesha effect or no?
Maybe a little bit, but with this, for some reason, it's kind of hard for me to decide if it's Kesha effect or not. I don't know why.
I would say no, because I feel like each song has one thing that you can kind of latch onto that's very different from every other one.
That's a good point. I think that's ultimately why I was kind of like hesitating to say yes to Kesha effect. Yeah, no, I didn't like think to myself, oh, Kesha effect or anything like that. I didn't write down Kesha effect anywhere. So I think ultimately I would have to agree and go with no, there was no Kesha effect. But when you bring it up, I definitely for a second did think, oh, I guess there is maybe a little bit of it present. So I don't know. I can't say like I can't fully say no, I guess. And at the end of the day,
it is also a lot shorter. It's only 9 songs.
That's also very true.
Like it's not crazy. And there's 2 interludes on it. So
yeah, that's also very true.
One of which we have to talk about right now, Crying Over Nothing, Part 2. This is track number 6. I wrote down one thing. It's a more advanced version of the intro. I know you hate interludes, but it's a fun way to tie the mixtape together, in my opinion. I assume you will like this less because we also get a trap beat in it. This is a 3 for me, though.
I didn't have much to say about the song. You were right. It didn't really work for me that well. It didn't mesh for me, but it also did stay consistent. It's still a 2.5. I think ultimately I'm just not that interested in this style. I also did feel like the beginning was kind of particularly like disjointed. That being said, again, like I just said before, it's not like it goes down to a 2 or anything. It's still a 2.5. It's still very consistent, even if I'm not ultimately very interested in it, I guess. Which I will say, it's interesting that this is a 2.5 considering the score that the next song is going to get, which I won't say anything more so as not to spoil it.
Your favorite song, track number 7, Scully. This is the other song I specifically said that I thought was another great horror movie song. I think it's a fun vibe.
I agree.
If I had to choose, I would probably say this is my least favorite, but I still thoroughly enjoy it. This is a 3.
Oh my God. We're back here, huh?
This is not why I chose this to be your favorite song. On the first listen, I was like, you probably like Scully. Second listen, I was like, that's probably my least favorite song. Oh my God. Am I right?
First of all, let me just say, I think the lyrics and melody itself feel particularly weak in this song. And that's even compared to like some of the other songs. Not to all of them, but they do feel quite weak in the song. That being said, the production in this song is so freaking good that it bumped it up to 3.5 and made it my favorite song.
There we go. You had me worried for a little bit.
The moment I was looking at my notes and I was like, oh, that's right. I forgot that I didn't really like the lyrics and melody that much. I was like, ooh, I can like pull Brandon's leg. Because yeah, this is absolutely my favorite song because of the production. The production is really good on this and kind of like saves it from its weaker parts for me.
I agree with that. I think that the chorus in this one was the one that kind of like captured me the least. Mm-hmm. And I thought that it also feels the least hip hop. So that was kind of the other reason I was thinking that you would probably enjoy it.
I see that, yeah.
And I will say, if you like this, you will probably like Gorillaz. I don't listen to Gorillaz because I don't like Damon Albarn. And it's like, I would rather just listen to Saturday Night Dynamite, which is like actually good music. So that's my take on it. I'm sorry if anybody loves Damon Albarn, but Blur, he was in Blur. Their song 2, which is the title of it, was actually done better by Big Time Rush. So, and that is a hill I will die on. I
don't even have I can't even stand on that hill because I have no idea.
I think you would agree that Big Time Rush does it better, honestly, because it's that like maximalist 2010s pop that I think you seem to very much enjoy. So instead of like a 90s kind of rock song.
I do enjoy that a lot. It's so much fun. Oh, I mean, I do enjoy a lot of rock, like 90s rock songs too, even if I do enjoy like 60s, 70s, 80s rock more. But yeah, I think I ultimately would probably agree if you say so. Because I feel like at this point, you know my taste, considering that like every single album, you know what song is going to be my favorite. So,
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've missed on a few, but I'm learning more.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do have to talk about something that you unfortunately do not like, which is track number 8, Smoke Hole. This song, I'm going to get it out of the way. I rated this a 4. This was the one I came into the album thinking this is probably my favorite because I forgot that Mountain Jack was not on it. Or sorry, that Mountain Jack was on it. This song is produced by Saturday Night Dynamite and 2 Inch Punch. This is the only one that has different credits. And if you like this song, which I don't think you do, but this is, I guess, to the audience, if you like this song but wish it was a little shorter and didn't have the talking interludes, you are in luck because I actually like that version better. And I might have put that at a 4.5. Oh. It is called Smoke Hole Edit. It's on their Spotify. It's, I think, just under 3 minutes. And it just kind of streamlines the song a lot more. And I think it's really great. It's also a great night walking song. I know I brought up night driving a lot with the Midnight. This whole mixtape kind of feels like perfect when it's October and you're walking late at night alone and fearing for your life.
I do want to listen to that because I think I would enjoy it more. That being said, I didn't hate this song. This is actually at a 3.
Whoa.
Yeah, I thought the opening was quite fun, and overall I think it's a solid song. Obviously it's still, I don't love it or anything. I think it's just okay, but it feels stronger to me than a lot of the other songs on the album. And that actually kind of surprised me that I did enjoy the song at least a little.
That surprises me too, because I feel like this is very like unlike something that you would like. So
Yeah. And I mean, I could see coming back to it and then not liking it later. But in the moment when I was listening to it, I was just like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't hate this. I don't particularly like it too much either. I think it's just very okay, but I'll still listen to it, you know? So I think, I don't know. I was kind of surprised at that too.
I think on this song, verse 2 once again goes insane, which I think I've said like 3 times. There's something about them setting up the song kind of normally, and then in verse 2 getting more melodic, and I really like that. And I also wanted to say I have literally no idea what they're saying like half the time in this song. And I also don't know. They verified all their lyrics on Genius, and I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks they're wrong. Like, because sometimes I just can't hear what they wrote down as being in the song. And I don't know if it's because they're British and I can't understand the British accent very well, or if it's like British slang that I don't understand. But there's something about this song specifically that I'm like, I just really don't know what they're doing. Also, to me, this and Mountain Jack are the highlights, which I kind of said before, but because they both have the most memorable choruses, in my opinion, on the whole album. And then I wanted to ask you one quick little question before we move on. What is a smoke hole?
I mean, do you mean like in a house when you have a hole in the roof to let the smoke out? I know what a glory hole is.
Oh my God.
I'm not 100% sure what a smoke hole is, but I have ideas. Not out of personal use, just because, you know, when you grow up in this day and age, you learn about stuff like that. So.
That's true. Yeah. I can imagine.
If you go to public high school, you know about stuff like that.
That is literally what I was going to say. Boys' bathroom type beat.
Yeah.
I think a smoke hole is your mouth, which is obviously only meant for cigarettes when you are a scoundrel causing mischief in the night.
Or if you were born when our parents were born.
True.
I can see that, though. I agree.
I don't know. Maybe that's British slang. Maybe that's something they came up with. I really don't know.
Maybe it's your ass if someone's blowing smoke up your ass.
Very true. I don't know if that's a saying across the pond, though, you know.
That's very true. I didn't think about that.
Who knows? We got one last song for you. Track number 9, Muscle Bay Outro. I wrote 4 words about this. What a great ending. 3.5.
I agree that this is actually a solid ending for the album. I was surprised because I feel like, you know, a lot of times when I don't generally like an album, the outro doesn't work for me, but this outro worked for me a little bit. Ultimately, like the lyrics and vocal performances didn't really work for me kind of as usual, but the production bumped it up and kept it at a 3 for me and kind of ended like the back end of this album on a high note. I was very surprised. I was thinking, oh, you know, it's an outro, it probably won't be like that good, but I feel like it's a very fitting outro for the album.
I agree. I don't agree with the part of not liking the vocal performances because I think that is actually a standout of the album, but that's my opinion. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And if you, listener, have listened to this, then you also will be screaming at one of us, "You're so right." And the other one, "Oh my God." Or maybe you'll be right in the middle and say, it's fine sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't work. But that is to say, we have reached the end of this mixtape. Our introduction into the world of Western, I don't even know what part of England they call this. It's Somerset, England. We have reached the end of our journey for now. And I wanted to ask you, what did you think of your time spent here? And what is your score of the album?
I think that this was a very interesting experience and one that I enjoyed going on. You know, the things that I've said about individual songs kind of go for the overall album. I don't think it's particularly for me, this style at least, even though there are songs here and there that I did enjoy, including one, you know, Scully, that I kind of like, I would go back to and re-listen, not as often as I might re-listen to, you know, some other stuff, but still I would go back to it. And I guess I'll end with saying that you were actually right. This is a 2.5. I don't really like it, but I also don't like abhor it. I don't think it's terrible. I just think that it's not for me.
I'm getting pretty good at this, I must say.
And I'm guessing that this is a 3.5 for you. I'll throw that out there.
You would be absolutely correct.
Hell yeah.
This is a 3.5. I very much enjoy this mixtape. I think it captures the vibe of that they were going for perfectly, of kind of this like spooky, weird feeling. They also kind of described their music as feeling like somewhere between a nightmare and a dream, which I think
I can see that.
kind of feels pretty good for this. It sometimes doesn't make sense, and it sometimes goes off in these weird directions that feel kind of strange, but it all like fits into this world.
Yeah.
And I think they did a great job with this. This did make me want to listen to their AI art album because I do love their music. And
Right.
even if I hate AI and think it's probably going to be the death of us all and of artists first,
Oh yeah.
maybe I'll listen and report back to you soon. And maybe I'll listen as in real life of us recording this as we get closer to Halloween. And, you know, I want something a little bit more spooky, scary.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, this is a 3.5. I still have a lot of work to do. I feel like I've done a great job of introducing some genres of EDM to you, and you've been able to like them and find things that you
Exactly.
can latch onto. But I feel like I haven't done as good of a job with hip hop. To me, that's because a lot of hip hop albums aren't as strong as other genres. And if you want like a strong hip hop album, you almost have to go back to the 90s or early 2000s, because nowadays it's a lot about the singles and what you can make a moment with.
Yeah.
Eventually, I hope to kind of get you a little bit more of a foundation and find you some stuff that you like within hip hop. And not that this even is hip hop. I have really no idea what this genre is, but I hope we get there soon.
Well, hey, I'm sure we'll get there.
That's all I got for this album. R.I.P. Sad Night Dynamite, if they actually are gone forever, because I think that was 4 years is too short for a career, and I would like more music personally, preferably without AI art. But on that note, let's take it back to a time before AI was even a worry, a thought in people's minds. Let's go back to the 70s.
When the only thing I had to worry about was serial killers out on the loose.
Which I guess was a pretty common occurrence.
Yeah, I mean, a little anecdote before we jump in. So my parents obviously were born and raised in Armenia, which was part of the Soviet Union when they were children. Obviously, it had a lot of downsides. There were some good sides, such as the fact that Armenia itself was very safe. So as a kid, you could run around. So obviously, my parents come here and they're like, oh my God, what the hell is up with this place? Because it's LA, and LA is a big mess. And it was especially a big mess in the 90s. I mean, they were here during like the riots, all that kind of stuff. And so my mom asked a colleague, she was like, hey, was it always like this where like you couldn't really let kids out on the street by themselves in a lot of neighborhoods? Obviously not everywhere, but a lot of places. And her colleague was like, no, it didn't really used to be like this. But during the 70s and 80s, with the rise of all the serial killers, a lot of parents stopped letting their kids go outside. So that was at least one person's experience with it. So it seemed like, hey, it really was like all the serial killers were coming out of the woodwork in the 70s and 80s and just kidnapping and killing a lot of people.
I can't think of a better way to introduce the Halloween episode's movie portion than with a story about serial killers. I mean, this is exactly what Halloween is all about. Scary.
Yes, and this is literally a movie about a serial killer slasher. It's more about, hey, don't do sex.
Exactly. It's about don't be mentally ill.
Yes. Don't be a person.
Literally, don't be a person.
But before we jump in, as usual, I'm going to throw the IMDb logline at you because I want to hear what you think. 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night, 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill again.
That sounds pretty good. I mean, that like sets up.
That works.
It's a little bit more backstory, but I like it as like setting up the entire premise of what you're going to see.
It is definitely a little weird that it doesn't focus on Jamie Lee Curtis, or sorry, not Jamie Lee Curtis, but her character, considering that she is the main character of the movie. But it does still work because it is kind of like, you know, you're still focusing on the antagonist. So
yeah, ultimately, I do like it.
yeah, it's like a fun, slightly different log line. That being said, let's get the credits out of the way. The film is, of course, directed by John Carpenter. It's produced by Deborah Hill and written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. The cinematography is by Dean Cundy. edited by Tommy Lee Wallace and Charles Bornstein, and music by John Carpenter, which we kind of alluded to the fact that he also writes music. It's also distributed by Compass International Pictures and Aquarius Releasing, which I think might be our first American film that's not released by one of the, big
It very well
companies.
could be.
Because I think Terminator might have been a small one too, but one of the few for sure. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, Nick Castle, PJ Souls, Nancy Loomis, amongst others. So let's get into it. The story of Halloween starts in 1542. Okay, I'm not going to do the history of Halloween. It all actually started with independent film producers Irwin Yablans and Mustafa Akkad when they saw John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13 at a film festival. Carpenter was not big at the time. Halloween is kind of the movie that shot him up, but he was kind of making the rounds, meeting people with his films, getting work pretty much. And they were impressed with Assault on Precinct 13 and presented their idea to him, which is literally just the idea for Halloween. A psychotic killer stalks babysitters. That was it. The reason why they had come up with this idea was because they wanted to make a film that had as big of an impact as The Exorcist did, which of course came out a couple of years before. And Carpenter agreed, with the caveat that he would have full creative control, which they gave him. So he quickly started working on the script with his then girlfriend, Deborah Hill, who of course would also produce the film. He right away decided that it was going to be set on Halloween night because he wanted to do an old haunted house movie and felt like Halloween had never really been a theme for a movie before. It should be noted that this is also kind of the first popular slasher film. They wrote the script fairly quickly, seemingly in 3 weeks. I saw 10 days too, but I wasn't sure if that was the actual writing of the first draft. So I did ultimately decide to just write down 3 weeks because that seemed to be the full time period where they wrote the draft. And they actually drew from Celtic Halloween traditions and festivals out of all places for inspiration. According to Hill, quote, "The idea was that you couldn't kill evil, and that was how we came about the story. We went back to the old idea of Samhain, that Halloween was the night where all the souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then came up with a story about the most evil kid who ever lived," end quote. Which I think you could really see. It's kind of this unkillable, entity that almost doesn't feel human. And Carpenter, of course, drew from the common folklore about haunted houses, which he kind of referenced with why he wanted to make the film. As he has said, quote, "Most small towns have a kind of haunted house story of one kind or another. At least that's what teenagers believe. There's always a house down the lane that somebody was killed in or that somebody went crazy in," end quote. And I actually wanted to ask, I know you were from a smaller town compared to, Los Angeles or Chicago, for instance, where I do feel like that haunted house kind of myth doesn't really exist. So I did want to ask you, is there any such thing from any areas around you?
Not really, but in a way, yes. Because, I grew up, there were a few houses that had problems and would have the cops called on them a lot. I'm pretty sure there was a drug lab kind of around me, but
Right.
the one I specifically thought of when you said that was there was this one house right next to the elementary school that I grew up going to, and it was weird. It the vibe was always strange, and you'd have to walk by it to go home if you were going down my street. There was always something a little bit off about it. It wasn't haunted, but the people were
Right.
the ones where you'd be like, oh yeah, maybe you cross the street when you walk by that house. So it wasn't like somebody had been killed, but there was definitely that house that everybody knew that was kind of I don't know. That's weird.
It's very reminiscent of To Kill a Mockingbird, where you can't walk by Boo Radley's house. Yeah, I thought that was such an interesting quote because I was like, yeah, that you see that so much in media, but at least for me, that wasn't an experience because I grew up in Los Angeles where you don't know your next door neighbors or anything about them, which is just the culture that's here due to the lack of community. So that's why I was very intrigued. And
yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak to me and my childhood friends all knew about this house and we're kind of yeah, it's weird.
Right. which is, I feel like, a very interesting, like, shared experience.
Yeah.
Hill and Carpenter kind of split up the work. Hill wrote the female character's dialogue, drawing on her own experience babysitting, and Carpenter kind of wrote Loomis's speeches on Michael Myers. And the ending was conceived of by Carpenter because he wanted to terrify the imagination of the audience, kind of keeping them guessing as to who and what Michael Myers is and if he is still alive, kind of tapping into that same idea of you can't really kill evil. And so they quickly moved into production. Now, the budget was very small. It was $300,000, which in today's money would be $1.4 million. So not like micro budget, but still quite small.
This is probably the smallest budget we've ever done for a film, right?
So far, for sure, I would imagine. And I think it's going to be a long time before we find another movie that's, has small of a budget. It might be like the Blair Witch Project or something like that,
Yeah, Project X as well, I was thinking.
Yeah, something like that. Which, ironically, there are a lot of horror movies with very small budgets, but still, I do think it's still like harder to find smaller budget films that kind of broke into the mainstream.
If we ever do Skinamarink, I feel like I heard that was like in the tens of thousands.
Yeah, I could see that. And I've heard that's quite creepy and very divisive. So that's going to be very interesting to cover. And I do want to watch that film. So I'm looking forward to that. But the fact that the budget was so small did kind of limit who they could cast because they couldn't really get a lot of big name actors. And they kind of did want a name actor for Dr. Loomis. They actually went to Peter Cushing, but he turned the role down. He had obviously become giant for Star Wars. So then they went to Christopher Lee, who of course was very known for being in a lot of B movies and would later be known for Star Wars 2 and Lord of the Rings. But he also turned them down, even though he would later tell Carpenter that he really regretted that decision. And boy, I would love a Christopher Lee version of Dr. Loomis. He would be chewing up that scenery so much. That being said, they eventually went to Donald Pleasance, who agreed to join because his daughter Lucy had actually worked with Carpenter as a guitarist on the score of Assault on Precinct 13 and loved working with him. So based off of his daughter's recommendation, he came on board and he was paid $20,000.
That's pretty good.
That's somewhere like around $100,000 today.
In a way, a significant portion of the budget too.
Yeah, no, legitimately. Now, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis, in spite of her very famous parents, who are, of course, Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis, was unknown. She had been in some things, but I think they were, quite small. Carpenter, because of this, didn't really know her. Hill pushed for Curtis, especially considering that her mom was in Psycho. So she was like, oh, look, there's this great connections of her mom being in Psycho. So they eventually cast her. That being said, Curtis was kind of apprehensive about playing Laurie because, as she has said, quote, I was very much a smart aleck and was a cheerleader in high school. So I felt very concerned that I was being considered for the quiet, repressed young woman when, in fact, I was very much like the other two girls, end quote, which I think is such an interesting quote because she plays the role really well, in my opinion, and you don't get the impression at all that she is a very outgoing person. I also want to say she was paid $8,000, less than half. Just put that out there. Of course, she is unknown, but still, she's the star of the film and appears in much more of it.
She is unknown.
A woman, yeah.
She's unknown. She's also a woman, and she's younger.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't too surprised, sadly, when I saw that number, I will say. I mean, yeah, at least it's 8,000 and not 2,000 or something.
I honestly thought it'd be lower.
There was someone that was paid lower, though. And this was Nick Castle, who, of course, plays the masked version of Michael Myers. He had befriended Carpenter at USC, and that's how he came on board. And he was paid $25 per day, which is very little. I don't know what the mass sum is, but considering that they probably did not film for too many days, it was not a lot, which is kind of crazy how little that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you have a small budget, I guess.
Yeah, that's how you keep it small. I did want to say that the unmasked Michael Myers at the end was played by a different actor. It's played by Tony Moran, who was paid $250, which, hey, that's probably how much Nick Castle made for all of the production. Carpenter himself was not paid, as much as Pleasance. He was only paid $10,000. And that's for directing, writing, and composing the music altogether. That being said, he did get 10% of the film's profits. I don't know if that's net or gross, but still, he kind of came out better in the back end. Production was very tight, and they filmed somewhere around 20 days. Again, I don't know exactly how many, but poor Nick Castle did not get paid very much. And they filmed in locations around Los Angeles, which included South Pasadena, Altadena, Hollywood, and Sierra Madre. They also filmed in the spring, so they had to literally bring in artificial fall leaves and had a lot of trouble finding pumpkins. And because of the limited budget, a lot of the props and wardrobe used in the film had to kind of be thrown together. This included actors wearing their own clothes, and Curtis's whole wardrobe was bought for $100 at JCPenney. As for the Michael Myers mask, that's actually a Captain Kirk mask from Star Trek that production designer / art director Tommy Lee Wallace bought and then literally widened the eye holes and painted it the bluish white color. So that famous mask was literally just like a $5 or $2, Halloween mask from the store. And the last thing, because there honestly is not that much to say about the film's production. It seemed to be quite like simple and clear forward. But I thought it was interesting that, Curtis was obviously playing a character that gets more and more frightened during the film, but they were shooting it out of sequences and those films are shot. So Carpenter literally created a fear meter for her where he would tell her, okay, here you're this scared, you're at a 7, or here you're at a 4, or here you're at a 10, which I thought was very interesting, sort of the way you can see how he directed his actors. On the other hand, for Myers, he was like, hey, just literally hit your marks because I don't want you to emote at all. I want you to feel almost non-human, which I thought worked quite well. Now, the film premiered October 24th, 1978 in Kansas City, Missouri. I also want to say, before I continue, it's kind of crazy going from Blade Runner to this. Because Blade Runner was like, oh, this went wrong, then that went wrong. And then this was kind of like, yeah, we got everyone together, went and shot it, and yeah, we finished it. So, on its $300,000 budget, it would go on to gross $70 million. So it was a giant success. It was a big box office hit. I think it was one of like the most successful independent films of all time to this day, or something like that. That's probably grossing like at least like 300 million on a, $20 million budget. That's crazy. And it also received pretty good responses from critics. A lot of people kind of noted that it was a step up for, a film that's in the horror genre, because, back then horror was just on the rise. It wasn't nearly as popular. It wasn't nearly as widespread. And a lot of horror movies were B movies. So I'm sure that like movies like this were kind of rare, where it worked like better, I guess, for lack of a better word. Robert Ebert, who I don't know how much you know of him.
Roger Ebert, yeah, but I know him. He's the guy.
Did I say Robert?
You did. It's fine.
Yeah, he's the guy.
I was just trying to pass by it so you wouldn't have to address it, but you did anyway. Now this is staying in the episode. Anyway, yes, I know Roger Ebert, and yes. I know his influence in film spaces.
Yes, very influential. He was known for being very critical of horror films, and yet he praised the film and actually picked it as one of his top 10 films of 1978. So it did hit with quite a lot of kind of important critics. And even the people that gave it more negative reviews kind of ended up being impressed with Carpenter's work on the film, especially as time went by. And of course, as time did go by, the reception of Halloween has only grown. It's considered one of the best films of 1978 and one of the most influential horror films, kicking off the popularization of slasher films in the 1980s. It popularized so much, including the final girl trope and the trope of killing off characters who take drugs or engage in sex. And so many slasher films that followed it, so many of the famous ones like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, all of those films did draw so much from Halloween and were influenced so much by Halloween. And it would, of course, go on to cement both John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis, along with the character of Michael Myers, into the Hall of Horror fame, especially Michael Myers, who is maybe the most famous horror icon, along with Jason and Freddy Krueger. That being said, I do have some questions, especially considering that, there was much to say about the production of the film. I did want to ask you if, and this is a two-part question, but I wanted to ask you if this was your first slasher film and if you found it to be very scary or not, especially compared to some of the other horror films that we've watched.
I believe this is probably my first slasher. I've seen no movies, so most likely it is, and I can't recall one off the top of my head that's a slasher. Was it scary? I'm not sure, because I rented this from my local library, and the mixing on this was so bad that I had to double the volume. So every jump scare was like insanely loud, and it did scare me because I couldn't understand what was going on at like half the movie. So yes, it was scary in that regard, but in a sense of like just being scary overall, probably not. Like, I feel like there's a lot of scarier movies, but I had to listen so intently to what was happening because it was mixed so poorly that I was startled when something loud would happen.
Well, and the reason why I brought that up is because, I remember when I watched this film, I enjoyed it, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I did enjoy it, but I wasn't really frightened. And, I think this definitely does suffer from the fact that, first of all, it's an old horror movie, and I feel like horror is kind of one of those genres that does age the worst with time in terms of, being effective as a horror film.
Horror and comedy, both.
Yeah, those are the two genres, which I don't think takes away from the films themselves. Like, a horror film can not be that scary and still be a really good film. But I think the fact that this is an older film, plus the fact that it was so influential, meaning that so many other films borrowed from it, do kind of make it, feel quite tame, even if I still enjoy that tameness.
I can't even remember the amount of movies we've talked about, or which movies we've talked about, that kind of suffer from being old or from being the first. And I feel like we've talked about this with music too, but this is one that I felt very much suffers from being the first to do something, because it's like I can see all these tropes and I can see that other people did them better.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
So in that regard, it was kind of like, it's a little disappointing when you're looking back, but at the same time, it did birth an entire or I guess, I don't know if it birthed it or if it helped shape slasher as a genre, which I think is that's a huge achievement that you can't really discount just because it's the first,
Well, and to that point, I wanted to ask you what you thought about John Carpenter's, directing and writing, because, I know you haven't seen any of his other films, and I think that his other films, such as The Thing, is more frightening than this and works better for me, even though I do still enjoy this. So I was interested if, you could see yourself enjoying other films of his more based off of his directing, or if, the fact that it is kind of so tropey kind of leaves you in the dark about how you would enjoy his other films.
Yeah. I mean, I think the directing aspect of it is kind of the hardest for me to quantify in this film, because it really didn't feel like there was a director in a weird way. There's nothing that I was like, oh, this feels like this is this director's thing. And I feel like that's fine.
Right. It's like the tropes are so strong, you kind of can't see the directing because of the tropes being there. That is the directing, but it feels like a trope because it was borrowed by so many other people.
I'm fine with that. Ultimately, I don't think the story needed it didn't need Steven Spielberg to come in, and I don't know that would have changed anything, really. So in that regard, I think it's fine. Writing, however, I was kind of disappointed by the writing. And it's interesting that you say that his writing partner, I cannot remember her name, I'm sorry.
Deborah Hill.
It's interesting that you mentioned that she wrote the teenagers dialogue, because I thought that was way better than kind of any of the other dialogue, and also just the characterization of the doctor himself, like as a character, and then his speeches. So that in that regard, I was kind of disappointed. I feel like I'd be more interested in seeing a John Carpenter directed movie written by someone else. But I guess that's my only takeaway.
I will say, like, I kind of said this before, but I do really want you to watch The Thing at some point because that's my favorite film of his that I've seen. And I'm not sure if he wrote that, but I feel like that film was kind of him like presenting the best of himself as a director and if he wrote it as a writer, because that film is genuinely, I think, one of the best film of the 80s and a fantastic horror film. And it's not a slasher film. It's a very different type of a film.
I assume he had more of a budget at that point as well, and I think that can only help, you know?
Yes, that's
like,
also true.
For $300,000, this is a feat to make this, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Once you get more into the like in at this time's money, like if you get $20 million, you're like, okay, we're in a totally different ballpark. Exactly. Like the movie's going to be completely different. And I think that can only help, you know? Rarely has more money negatively affected making a movie, unless we're talking about like the Electric State or Megalopolis or something like that.
Right. I mean, that's kind of different. But, and I mean, I guess I wanted to add something, which is, ironically, John Carpenter wasn't like, oh, I love horror films and I want to make horror films. Even though he made a lot of horror films, he was actually always more drawn to Westerns and wanted to make a Western, even though so far he hasn't gotten the chance. He's still alive, so we never know. But him like directing a lot of horror films was kind of just like because of how his career went rather than him trying to seek out horror films. So it is kind of ironic that he became known for horror films and like made so many horror films that are iconic.
That's very interesting. It's weird how that happens to a lot of artists where you kind of get boxed into something, and like obviously he's good at it, so like there's a reason that he would continue to be pushed towards this. But like it does kind of suck when it's like, oh, I really would like to make something else, you know?
Right. No, I completely agree. You know, I like his work on this. Again, I don't think it's the strongest film, even though I do like this film. But I do think that this is, you know, not the best presentation of his abilities. I mean, he released a TV movie the same year that he released Halloween called Someone's Watching Me. And he wrote that film, and I think that film is much better than Halloween. And I think that the script for that film specifically is so good because it's more tense than Halloween to me.
Maybe writing a screenplay in 10 days isn't the answer.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Who knows?
But I don't know. It's interesting to me that like, even though I do like this film, to me, his most famous film is not the best like presentation of his abilities.
I also did want to say right now, as you're talking, I've been thinking, what if I can predict your score? And I have a feeling it's going to be a 4, and that's all I'm going to say right now. But anyway, continue.
I did want to quickly ask before I go on to my last 2 questions. What do you think of his score? Because obviously I know music is very important to you, and we did talk about a tiny bit last week, ironically.
Yeah, I thought it worked. I think the song is iconic. I knew the song before even watching the movie, which is kind of weird because I didn't really know it was from this. It's good. I don't think it's like revolutionary necessarily, but it works. And if it was mixed better, I'd like it more, I think.
I mean, I do love the score for this. It's not, again, as you said, it's not revolutionary, but I, like, growing up, didn't know that he wrote literally all the music for his movies or for almost all of his films until a friend of the podcast who I already mentioned, Danny, told me. And my mind was kind of blown because I think it does take a lot of skill to literally, like, to write music on top of directing. So I did just want to bring that up and shout him out for doing that.
I mean, I didn't even know that he wrote music until last week when I was learning about synthwave, which I had already known about. And it had just never connected the dots that John Carpenter, oh yeah, he makes music and movies.
My second to last question is regarding Jamie Lee Curtis. Because, of course, you know, she had famous parents. She's very well known now, very, you know, well respected as an actor. Had you seen anything with her, and what did you think of her in this film?
I don't think I've ever seen a movie with her, but I've seen her in TV shows. She's always just been kind of like, okay.
You should watch The Bear season 2.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
I don't. Yeah. I never finished season 1, so I probably won't, unfortunately. But I thought her acting was passable in this. I could see it being like a first film. I wasn't like blown away by any of the acting in this film. I was especially held back by the acting of the doctor. I did not enjoy that. I thought honestly the best actor was the cop who was the other girl's dad. I was kind of the most like he just kind of had that presence, and I was like, you know what, I'm kind of drawn to him. And I thought the girls all together were very good, but individually, I was just kind of like, that's all right. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, you know.
It's very interesting that you say that because out of all of her stuff that I've seen, my favorite performances from Jamie Lee Curtis, ironically, aren't from horror films. My two favorite are literally from The Bear, which is a very dramatic performance. I know it's not a comedy, thank you very much. And then my favorite comedic performance from her is from A Fish Called Wanda, which is one of the best comedies of all time. And like I agree, I think she does a good job in this. Well, first of all, I don't think it's a role that has a lot of meat on it, to be honest. And it's definitely like she's starting out, but I think it's kind of ironic that she is very much known as a scream queen. And I'm like, oh yeah, my favorite performances of her have nothing to do with horror films. That being said, like we haven't seen any of the other horror films with her, including like the 3 or 4 other Halloween movies she was in. So, we'll see. But the last question, and I say this one for last for a reason, because I think that this is a very interesting topic when it comes to subgenres in horror films. Now that you've seen 3 different subgenres with, the kind of like the possession subgenre of The Exorcist, I don't even know what to call it, subgenre, or I guess the psychological horror subgenre of the Get Out, and now the slasher genre, what genre do you feel like you gravitate towards to? What feels like it works better for you?
I mean, I talked about psychological horror last week. I feel like that's going to be my number one, but I feel like I almost kind of shy away from slasher just because to me it almost feels cheap sometimes. Kind of like how I talked about jump scares. It's just kind of like it doesn't feel earned in a way. But I will say that watching this was much more interesting than I thought it would be. There was much more of a story because my experience with hearing about slashers is, oh, you just go out and kill a bunch of people. And it's like, okay, cool. Like you just have to wait for the people to die, which you kind of are doing here.
That's definitely like the reputation that bad slashers have kind of presented.
Yeah, so I feel like slasher is probably still the lowest of the 3 horror genres we've done, but it's not, I'm not going to write it off like I thought I was going to. Yeah, I'll say that. Talking about The Exorcist, I mean, I don't know if this is a time for me to do my score, but I'm gonna kind of do it anyway. Talking about The Exorcist, I enjoyed it, but I kind of felt it suffered from being the first or being one of the first. I feel similarly about this movie, and I'm going to give them the same score, but I would rather watch Halloween over The Exorcist, even though I feel like The Exorcist genre has more potential. So this is a 2.5. I feel like this is pretty average. I was
so close.
You were very close. I wasn't a huge fan of like any particular part of this film, but I also didn't hate anything. And I didn't like find anything that I was like, besides some of the acting, I was kind of like, but that's okay. Like ultimately the story is interesting and I think it kind of unfolds pretty well. So ultimately this is a 2.5. I did want to say one thing that I did notice that I was not a fan of. There are not palm trees or mountains in Illinois. I did live there.
Yeah, definitely not. You can tell that this was filmed in Los Angeles or a place like Los Angeles.
They did not even try to hide it.
Yeah, no, they're like, you know what? We have a small budget. It doesn't matter. To your point about like the genres, I remember last week how you talked about how you really like kind of the psychological part of horror. And I completely agree. That is definitely my favorite genre just because I think you can do so much. And for me, a horror film works the best when the horror comes from like the creepy feeling that it gives rather than jump scares or anything like that. Like all my favorite horror films, stuff like, The Witch, for instance, that's that same style of horror film. And those are hands down my favorite types of horror films. That being said, I do really enjoy slasher films if they're done well because, again, like they can have a story that can work very well and be, very engaging.
And you get some of that dread too that we were talking about with that you kind of mentioned with psychological horror, because you're like, somebody's going to die. I know that. Like,
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
tell, but you do have to wait and you have to figure out who it's going to be.
And ironically, the other part of my liking for slasher films, and this is something that me and Jennifer have discussed a lot, comes from the fact that it is, there are jump scares that scare you, there is dread, but ultimately, I come out of most slashers not being that scared, because at the end of the day, it's a guy that just swinging an axe at you. And I know both of us kind of have this mental thing of like, oh, it's just a guy. I could like run away and I'd be okay. And that's something that has always made me not like, for lack of a better word, like the ghost subgenre, stuff like The Exorcist, as much, because I just find it more frightening, which I know is the point.
I know what you mean though.
Yeah, like it scares me so much more that I kind of shy away from it, and I find slashers much more digestible, even though like I do think that most like possession or ghost horror films are truly scarier than a slasher film, But I think that's why in some ways I do prefer slasher, just because I can kind of like enjoy it a little bit more without like not being able to sleep the next night.
You can sit back, relax, and watch some people get killed.
Exactly. It's a fun time, Just blood. That's all it is. And I guess it's time to throw out my score, which is a 3.5, because I do think that, this is a really enjoyable film. I do like it quite a lot. Again, I think it's not nearly as strong as John Carpenter's other films, although he does have much worse films at the same time, which we will have to cover at some point. But I think if you watch films like The Thing, you can really kind of see John Carpenter come into his own as a director, because that film is, I think, kind of like a masterclass of building dread and paranoia. And I think that honestly, watching Halloween after watching The Thing did kind of make my score for it suffer. But hey, like, he also directed The Thing, so what can I say?
I don't have a lot to add either, because I feel like it's kind of just a self-explanatory film. And I mean, it's short. It's an hour and a half, like slightly over an hour and a half. And I'm good with that. Like, I didn't need anything more. I will say though, I did need more on the doctor, because I feel like that character was underdeveloped. I don't think I needed more running time on it though.
Which would be interesting. I don't know if the character comes back in the multitudes of sequels, but it would be interesting if he did and was expanded on more. Which, hey, maybe we'll have to watch like the 30 whatever sequels to this film.
I did also want to say that the doctor, for some reason, reminded me of Ben Kingsley. That's his name, right? From Sexy Beast that we watched. And I was just kind of like, there was just something about him, and also kind of the look. I was just like,
bald and
I don't know. Also, what is his accent? That is not American.
I mean, Donald Pleasance is, I believe, from the UK or...
Okay, that would make a lot more sense, because I was like,
he's English.
What is going on there? Because it does not sound like either.
He was born in Worksop, Nottinghamshire, England, so he's definitely English.
I would say, yeah, that's probably a good sign.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, but with that is Halloween, the movie. That is Halloween, the day. That is Halloween, the episode. Mm-hmm. And that is Halloween, the month for our podcast. And I hope you enjoyed. I think David feels the same way, because I feel like this was a successful Halloween month.
Absolutely. And I hope you guys, enjoyed this little adventure and are excited for when we do this again next year, because this will be a recurring thing every single season.
Absolutely. And we will also have some other little fun things planned for you throughout the rest of the season. I know we've already made it to past the halfway point of the season. And, we got some other fun things coming up, maybe even one next week. Who knows?
So stay tuned, guys.
But with that, where can they find us, David?
Well, they can find us on Instagram, which is linked in our link tree, which is in the description of this episode and on the Instagram page itself. And there, not only do we announce when every single episode is out, but we also announce what next week's episode is. So if you want to find out what you should watch and listen to in preparation, you should go there and check it out. Brandon, what if they want to email us with a question or a comment or a complaint?
That would be upcpod@gmail.com, which once again can be found in our link tree or on our Instagram, because we just have brand synergy like that. It's crazy. And you know what else? You can watch videos of us on TikTok where you can see our beautiful faces. And we're going to tell you all kinds of cool things about movies and music from the past few years. And maybe more.
I don't know about beautiful, but
I was speaking mostly of you, not of myself.
I was thinking of the opposite way. I was thinking
look at us
beautiful
go.
here. No, look at us go. And of course, you guys can also find our Radar Music and Letterbox if you want to see what scores we gave it, if you want to score it yourself so we can compare. And that is also on the link tree.
Yeah, I think that about covers it. Leave us a 5-star review, rating anywhere you listen, because that helps us a lot. And
tell your friends and family.
Exactly. Tell everyone you know that you just experienced the best month of your life listening to Uncultured Pop Culture, because I know I did. So all I got to say is we will see you next week.
See you next week.